Welcome to the DNX podcast, the #1 resource for entrepreneurs, nomads, and impact-driven souls. And I am your coach, Silvia Christmann. Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm going to tell you my story of getting suspended from school in 4th grade. Adventures of Little Silvia are always a crowd favorite, so wanted to share this story with you because it's really funny. So I basically grew up with a protest sign in my hand. Being politically active, being opinionated, being informed, and wanting to save the world was, was instilled in me from a very young age. I can't quite tell you who started it. My guess would be it's a combination of my grandfather's influences of, wanting to leave the world a better place than you found it, always making sure you leave everything better than you found it. My mother's sort of need to, be politically engaged or at least opinionated. And obviously the fact that I went to a Waldorf School where that was very important. If you wanted to participate in conversation, it's something that was instilled in you in a very young age, that you had opinions. I think the first time many birthdays, I don't even know how many birthdays I did this, but I always wanted to save the rainforest. So for a lot of my birthdays, I collected money for, I think it was WWF or some rainforest organization. I should look this up because I know I own a bunch of rainforests somewhere. Because that's what I wanted to do. For my birthday, it was always save the world sort of time. Get money to buy a piece of rainforest because the evil McDonald's wanted to kill the rainforest. That's literally my childhood memory. I'm sure it wasn't actually exactly like that, but in my childlike version of it, it was save the world from McDonald's. Don't go eat there, don't eat meat, and buy rainforest so that you own it and nobody can deforest the rainforest because the global climate needs the rainforest. So that started very young. It's changed to some degree. I don't think my opinions and my need to express strong opinions and taking a stand for something that can be off-putting to some, frightening to others, interesting and amusing to others, that has never changed. And so, I remember this very vividly, that obviously when you go to Waldorf School, because it's self-governed, majority rules, so it's not that you can't get sent to the headmaster or principal, what do you call it? And depending on what country you grew up, but there's a headmaster, a principal, and I believe they actually have the same job. But we don't have that in Waldorf School. It doesn't exist. It's self-governed. So for people like me, if you had a good enough reason to be somewhere and could defend your case, then majority rules, meaning if there was a snowfall and we all wanted to go and play in the snow and we could come up with a good educational reason to do so, of the majority rules, we went out and played in the snow, as long as we integrated this with a learning experience. So experiential learning and majority vote decisions that could be initiated by students was definitely appreciated, favored, and always possible. And for someone like me, I don't know if I learned it there, if I was born that way, if I just, was a perfect fit. Maybe my mother sent me there because she felt like that I would have the least amount of obstacles with my personality in that kind of school environment. I don't know. I might call her and ask. But I enjoyed it. I had a very colorful childhood. And, I spent a lot of time at my girlfriend's house, Merle, who lived on this organic farm in the country, and they had sheep and cows, and we could always go out there after school and we would have climbing competitions where we go from one end of the forest to the next, and we'd come out being scratched head to toe, having all of the huts. I don't know the word in English. Interesting. What is it? Tree sap? And, stuck to our hair and faces and clothes and just, happy as a clown because we made it and we were in it to win it. And another favorite game of ours was to ride our bicycles into the bushes as fast as possible to see if we could flip through or bounce back, right? So if you're not super fast, you will actually be bounced back by the bush. And if you ride super fast, you'll actually just shoot straight through it. So interesting challenges and competitions we came up with. All of them rather irresponsible, and it usually involved ruining someone's carefully manicured hedges, because even in the country, it is Germany. Don't forget that the front lawns are always carefully manicured and everything looks very, very pretty and super clean. So yeah, that was a great one. Yeah, I remember that one very vividly. Oh, and then there was the jumping off the roof competition. Initially, we would jump off the roof into either a pile of hay, and then eventually, if you get really good at it, you can jump from rooftop to rooftop. And the farmhouses are rather tall, so we would climb around in these huge tall barns and then eventually jump from roof to roof or jump off the roof. And one time my sister came by, my mom was picking me up and my sister was with her. And yeah, my sister jumped off the roof and broke her knee. Yeah, because she had never done it before and she just thought she could, I guess. And, I think it takes a little bit of training because I don't remember myself breaking anything ever. I ended up actually jumping off the roof of my house and home back in town because I'm a city kid, or suburbs. I lived in the suburbs. I did that too. Yeah, I think, it was just so much fun that eventually it just you jumped off things that were higher and higher and higher. And conveniently enough, learning how to jump off the balcony of my house, which was the second story, also meant I could just sneak out and do other things when I was supposed to be in my room. And there was a tree next to the balcony, which allowed me to climb back in if I was trying to sneak back in. Unbeknownst to me, that tree actually goes past the kitchen window, so my mother could usually see me jumping off the balcony and climbing up the tree. So yeah, you know how it is as a kid. Things don't go as unnoticed as you think they do. And, but that was something I really enjoyed doing. So yeah, going back to being suspended, that was fun. But it was during the first Gulf War and there were protests going on in the streets, and I was a big fan of protests and roadblocks. And I grew up in Oldenburg. I don't know if you know where that is, but there was the big traffic circle in the middle by the Pferdemarkt. I guess Pferdemarkt would translate into the area that used to be once upon a time the horse market. And, roadblocks were always favored there because if you block that traffic circle, then nobody can go anywhere in the entire city. It's a big city. We have 150,000 citizens. Huge. I'm kidding. As a New Yorker, that's oh, cute. That's one building. No. So yeah, anytime there was a protest, I was definitely down. I loved making myself signs. I would spend hours making various different versions of signs of things I wanted to protest, to draw on them and paint on them and come up with the best slogans, and then find branches and sticks to put them up on there and just type it together and come up with new cool ways I could put together my protest sign. That was, it was almost a hobby, I think. And yeah, and I would remember my mom or my grandparents come down to the basement where I would have my whole workshop set up for making protest signs and sort of giving me random commentary or perhaps correcting my grammar or spelling, because at the very least, I guess they wanted me to spell the words of protests correctly. And when you're in fourth grade, at least I didn't have my handle on grammar wasn't perfected. So sometimes I had to redo the signs because I would forget a letter, or I would get so excited about drawing the picture that I didn't finish the words. Yeah, that would happen too. And then, I wasn't really allowed to go with my protest signs if they weren't spelt correctly or had half words on it, That was pressed upon me that I should make sense at the very least. So that was a big one. And so that one time I remember going, and it was about the U.S. involvement in Iraq under the first Bush administration. And I made a sign that translated, "No blood for oil." Yes, I did. And I made my sign, and it was like really pretty with like the blood and the oil. And basically you couldn't really tell what it said, but in my mind it was really pretty. And all the big kids were going from Waldorf School, the ones, the ninth graders, then the 8th graders and the 10th graders, and probably above that. They were all going, so I was going. I was definitely going to protest in the Pferdemarkt. And I made my little sign, and there was no majority rules, and nobody else wanted to go, so I went. I think I convinced one other poor soul to come with me because it was like really important for me to protest. There was an opportunity to protest, and I was going to sit on that road and do a roadblock with my little sign. And I did. And upon my return, I was pulled aside and questioned about my intentions to participate in this protest and why I wanted to be there and why I was opposing this. And guess what happened? I was not really able to explain the socioeconomic circumstances and political reasons why I was opposing this move of the United States to get involved. And I had a vague understanding, but really diving into the economics of it and the political dynamics at play was something I hadn't actually informed myself about. And I got suspended for 3 days because punishment was to deprive you of education in Waldorf School until you come up with a good enough reason to tell us why you wanted to take a stand. And that was a real lesson for me, that I actually had to go back and research why was I protesting this? What was my position? I mean, you can't just make signs that are demonstrative and march the streets and sit in the streets because it's fun. You have to actually know what you stand for and what you're protesting. And so for 3 days, I needed to stay at home and research. I believe my friend Merle, the one with the Bauernhof, the farmhouse, she was the one that came with me. Maybe. Because I think her parents were tappet mad at me and my mom for being a bad influence. And after 3 days, I was allowed to go back to school after I explained in a very long essay the economic circumstances, the political circumstances, and also the socioeconomic circumstances in connection with that, and understanding it also in its religious context. And I'm sure it wasn't a very detailed essay. It was 4th grade, but at the very least, I had to sit down and be very clear why I had formed this opinion and had chosen to protest that day over coming to school and receiving an education. So, yeah, that might explain a lot about me and who I am as a person today. So, and to all of you fellow Waldorf School kids out there, I'm pretty sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, much love to all of you. Stay inspired. I'll be back next week with another episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your ongoing support. Before I leave you, I want to invite you into my world. Please go check out dnxcommunity.com. This is where you'll find the other nomads and evaders of convention. We'll see you there. And if you're interested in our English-speaking events, go and check out dnxglobal.com. You'll find the link below this podcast as well. And if you have time, one last favor, please go to iTunes, look for Silvia Christmann or look for the DNX podcast and leave a review. Thank you so much, lovely people, and I'll talk to you next time.